Hello, hello. This is Kim Ades from Frame of Mind Coaching, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to the Frame of Mind Coaching podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. She's a friend of mine. I met her maybe over a year ago. We totally hit it off. We completely connected. She's not only a friend, she's pretty experienced in the field of HR. Let me give you a little background. So years and years ago, she was a VP of HR for Whirlpool. And I'm not even talking about what happened before that. After that, she became the senior VP of HR for Driscoll's, the strawberry company. And now she is the chief people officer for a company named Aktana. Kate, Terrell, welcome.
Thank you, Kim. I really appreciate it. It's good to be here with you.
So it's a strange time, and there are lots of weird moving parts going on in the world. I really want to kind of hear your thoughts, your take, your experience on, from an HR standpoint, how should we as business owners be handling kind of the state of affairs with respect to our people? And, during this time, what do you think?
Yeah, I would tell you the situation seems like it is changing daily, hourly. And what started off for us, quite honestly, when we held our annual meeting in February, was making the very difficult call for the China team not to travel over to the United States to be able to join us because of the outbreak, to just on Friday, we announced the complete work from home protocol for all of our employees around the world. So, things are really changing. And I think for us, it is, we have one of our company values is value the person. And so how do we do that and protect our employees while at the same time, make sure that business continues moving forward? And, the good news for companies today is that working remotely has never been easier for many of the professional industries. Now, if you talk about service industries and other areas, there are all other kinds of challenges that you have to face. But when I look at our organization, I think we are very well positioned in order to work remotely. And yet, we still have to make sure we are taking precautions. We are listening to, what the requirements are. I think there's a lot to be learned for how, whether it's China or Italy or other organizations or other governments around the world have dealt with this, that we need to be conscious of. Some people think that shutting things down like bars and schools and all of those things are pretty draconian. And at the same time, when we think about our healthcare and flooding the healthcare, I think it is quite sensible, some of the precautions that we are now taking. And my hope is that we are taking them in enough time to really make sure that we reduce the overall curve of illness, if that makes sense. I don't know. I'm curious to know your perspective.
Well, I mean, for us, we're in Canada, and, the thoughts are kind of going in a multitude of directions. Some think we're behind the curve or the 8 ball and we're not responding fast enough. Some think, okay, hey, yes, these measures are drastic, but, they're about time and all of that stuff. But I'm kind of curious, you have a work from home program, which great, fantastic. How long do you put it in place for? Like, is there an open-end date? Is there a 2-week window? Like, nobody can really know what's going to happen, but how do you kind of make some general statements about what's ahead?
Yeah, I guess I would say, first of all, our organization has always had an incredibly flexible work environment. And so using tools like Zoom and Slack has been a way for us to work for many years. And so, putting in the work from home policy, it certainly does impact in terms of being able to engage with clients, but we also find our clients are doing the same types of things. And so we haven't put an end date on it. I think it is something that we will assess week by week, day by day as we need to, and we'll make the decision that makes sure that we are keeping, the safety of our employees and what governance are asking us to do kind of all in there. But it isn't something that you can say, I shouldn't say that. We said, we're going to look at it, and definitely we put our travel restrictions on hold. We said we would evaluate that at the end of March. Clearly we haven't made a decision on that, but as you look at what's happening, my guess is those restrictions will stay in place.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, all of my speaking engagements have been canceled. All of my travel has been canceled. And it's been fascinating to watch how conference events organizers and planners are handling it. Some are like, well, it's finished, it's canceled until further notice. Other people are doing it in small increments. At first they canceled the event, but wanted the speakers to still come in to do their presentations video based. And I'm like, I don't like that idea so much. And then finally they're moving to like a virtual setup where there are virtual conferences going on in the world. So it's been very, very interesting. A lot of our clients, my coaching clients, are dealing with the issue of layoffs. Like, how do I keep these people on? I simply can't afford them. Like, is there a humanitarian way of doing that? Is that something you guys are facing?
Yeah, I would say that is not on our radar screen right now, but I do think as we get into some of these things, like those are things that every organization is going to have to ask themselves. I think that's things that governments are going to have to ask themselves is, how do we make sure that from an economic perspective, that we do whatever we can to make sure that things continue to move forward. So there's so many facets and tentacles to this virus and the implications just on people, on business and the economy. It's not an easy or a one size fits all, but I certainly appreciate the fact that there are a lot of those things. In the US, the feds just took the interest rate to zero. So a lot of people trying to make a number of decisions to preserve things.
Well, so here's a question for you. There's a lot of talk out there that there are three major impacts of this situation. One is health, obviously. The second is economic, and the third is psychological.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, in a way, I'm really interested in the third. I'm interested in all of them, but I'm interested in the third, and really wondering what are companies doing to try to keep their people not only engaged but sane. Like, is there anything you're putting in place? And I'll share with you what we're up to, but I want to hear from you first.
Yeah, we have so I will tell you, I'll use my Spain entity as a great example. We're hiring. We've just hired new people. They were starting today. We've implemented work from home. They are doing daily connection meetings, right? 30 minutes at the beginning of the day to make sure that people are connected. They are using the tools at their disposal to, again, make sure that the environment that we have created stays on course and connects folks. I think you're right. The psychology of it is it's quite interesting because, for me personally, I don't like to live my life from a place of fear. And yet at the same time, you need to be thoughtful and reasonable and conscientious about how you go about your daily life right now. And so I do worry that the thoughtful, conscientious has been somewhat taken over by panic and paranoia. And again, that is it is a very serious situation. There's no doubt about that in my mind. But how do people say, like, I'm going to focus on what I can control, meaning I can stay home, I can work remotely, I can get creative in terms of how I engage with people. And, it's interesting, I work for a nonprofit who does a ton of in-person activities and events. And, this is pushing us to be like, okay, how do we rethink doing this in a digital environment? And how do we create the same type of engagement? And so there are ways to work through this if people are able to just make sure they take a deep breath and think through, okay, what do I need to do to protect myself? And how do I keep myself engaged and from not panicking?
Yeah. So it's a very important question, I think. From my perspective, this is like a very unique situation that is enforced upon us. And if I think about myself, like I'm normally living a million miles an hour, right? 5 kids on the road, coaching, speaking, building up the business development, leading the team, and on and on and on and on. And for the first time, it's like an enforced take a breath and really stop and think. And for me, it's questions of what do we stand for as a company? What are we really truly about? And how does this give us the opportunity to really get behind what we stand for? And so for us, one of
Mm-hmm.
our core values is, we have 5 core values. One is generosity. And you know what? I thought this is a really good time to reach out to people and invite them to journal in our online journaling platform at no
Mm-hmm.
charge. Let's give people a place to express themselves where they have access to a group of coaches who can just help them ride the storm a little bit. And so, this really gives you an opportunity to say what's important to me. What do I stand for? How can I express what means something to me? So that's on one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is, so now that I'm giving myself a rest, where am
Yeah.
I going? What do I want? How does this really fundamentally change everything I'm doing? And what do I now want to put in gear if and when things get back to normal? So, and something as simple as, okay, so we're home now. What do you do when you're home, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, you can sit on the couch, you can watch TV, you can eat a bunch of junk and drink a bunch of wine, right? Like you can do that. And to be honest, we did that for a few days, right? And then you
Yeah.
kind of go, okay, this isn't fun anymore. This is not where I want to go. This is not where what I want to be doing. This is not how I want to be spending my time. So now what? And what can I see for myself even being at home? How can I create an exercise plan? How can I make this fun? How can I really think through things I want to write and start creating new things from this vantage point? And so
Yeah.
for me, the big question is, what is the opportunity here? What's the benefit of this situation? Because you're 100% right. If we're always thinking from a position of fear, what happens? We shut down and options become very, very limited. We're not problem solving. We're not seeing opportunities in front of us. We're seeing only what we cannot do. My
Yeah.
question
You
for
know, it's
everybody
interesting.
is, my question for everybody is, what can you do now that you were never able to do?
Yeah. I think about it's times like these where you get to make a choice personally that you can focus on what you can control. And that is your North Star, or you focus on what you can't control. And when you focus on what you can't control, you can get frustrated, you can get more scared, you can start to play victim. I made the decision that I'm not going into the gym anymore. And I work at, like, health and fitness is really important to me. So the question became, okay, like, how do I recreate a workout routine at home? What does that look like? And then, you talk about generosity. One of the things that I love about my fitness studio is they've immediately started to take the workouts and they are posting them on their Instagram account, so that while people may not have all of the equipment, they can figure out how to modify and do those types of things. I think the other thing that you mentioned is, right, like, you can, like, oh yeah, we're going to sit home and drink wine and do whatever. We had family night last night. We watched Footloose. Like, it was fun. My daughter was, indoctrinated into a great 80s movie. But now it's like, okay, how do we have structure? She doesn't have school today. And so what is her structure? She's in looking at her English book. She's going to practice her Spanish while her teachers are figuring out, how do we switch this online? I am very much engaged. My schedule today from a work perspective is quite busy, because there are things to do and ways for us to connect via all of these tools, that work doesn't stop because this is going on. Now, I get that it's distracting, and I get there are situations where kids are at home, particularly when they're little kids, and now you're trying to work and engage them. But again, I think that focusing on what you can control and what you can do gives you so much more of a sense of empowerment than sitting around and just being almost frozen by everything that you can't do, or those types of things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't think it's an all or nothing situation. I think that being at home, being with family, can introduce things that we don't usually normally have time for. And I think the
Yeah.
balance just looks a lot different now. And so it's not, like, yeah, sure, we should put some structures in place, and we should leave some unstructured time to just be with where we are, with who we
Yeah.
are, and enjoy the movies, enjoy the games, enjoy the food, enjoy
Yeah.
the wine, enjoy the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
not resist so much. And this is part of the big thing, is that we typically resist what we perceive is out of our control. right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the question is,
Yeah,
what if you just put down your resistance? What if you just said, okay, like I, I don't have a choice, so I must accept it, right? Not,
that's
I
right.
don't have a choice, I have to suck it up, but I don't
Yeah.
have a choice, so I will accept it and figure out a way to turn this into an incredible experience and something that I look back on and say, that wasn't torture. That was actually a bit of a gift.
Right. Well, and again, what do we all learn from this experience? Like again, I don't want to minimize. There are things though for us to learn, right? Whether that's how we engage with our family, whether that's how we're engaging at work, it gives us this opportunity for creativity in some ways, right? In terms of how do we move forward. And again, I say that very much from a place of knowing that my employment and the world that I come from is professional services based. And so it is not that, hey, I'm on the front lines, I'm at a grocery store, I'm at a restaurant, and I understand that those things are quite different. And even in those situations, so how do you re-examine that and look to some of those things during what is a very stressful time for many people.
Yeah. So we didn't really talk about Aktana. What is it?
Yeah.
What do you do? It's a nonprofit, but share a little bit about your business.
Yeah, no, Aktana is not a nonprofit. The nonprofit that I mentioned earlier is something that I volunteer with. Aktana is a life sciences and technology startup company that really helps life science companies better execute on their brand strategies and delivering important information to healthcare providers. And so we use AI and we use machine learning to help make sure that the data is really helping those organizations execute better on their strategies. And it's interesting because many of those organizations right now are also minimizing their sales reps being out face to face. So how do you take this and really morph these into digital strategies?
And are people open to this idea at this time, or is there a shutdown?
No, I think there is an openness, right? And I think there's a working through, and again, you've got to invent what the possibilities are.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting. So I'm going to switch gears now. So you're working from home. Your daughter's at home. Is your husband at home too?
My husband is at home as well. Yes, we are all home, and it makes it for close quarters, but I would say overall we're doing really well.
And any tips for managing that? I mean, I have a bunch of kids, as everyone knows, and they're slowly coming back home. So I perceive that in the next week or two, we're going to have 5 kids back at home full time.
Back home.
And they're not little anymore. They're big and they take up a lot of space and they use up a lot of toilet paper. So any advice?
Yeah, for us, I would say, again, the normal routines are kind of broken right now. And so I think it is really, how do you forge new routines? Like I said, with my daughter, she doesn't have school today. Her teachers are formulating what is the online plan. And I would say we're really lucky that they are formulating that online plan, but she is working through her schoolwork, going back through her classes. For me, I got up and I am engaged in my work. I've set up my home office here and have my meetings, having them all done virtually. And then, my husband is actually general contracting on our house renovation. So he is upstairs. We do have some people who are up there, doing work. But again, it's all somewhat isolated, right? We are definitely doing the social distancing thing.
Yeah, my daughter is actually heading home tomorrow from Scotland. So she was doing a university semester abroad, and she's been recalled, kind of like, a car that has a broken wheel or something. But she's been recalled, and so she's heading home tomorrow. And because she will have been traveling, she's going straight into isolation with the rest of us. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, but you know what, I have to say, like, people, and I would say even for me, as this thing first broke out, it was kind of like, oh, come on, like, it's going to be fine. It's no worse than the flu. And I do think the self-quarantining and doing some of the social isolation so that we can stop the spike is really what is most important now, is how do we make sure that we contain the spread and that we, my guess is hospitals and healthcare providers are already overwhelmed. How do we do our part, even as a healthy person, to help manage that for all of the countries around the world? Because it's not just one country, right? We are seeing it everywhere. And then, you know, I don't know about you, but I am certainly hoping that warmer weather subsides all of this that is happening.
Let's hope so. And now your daughter's at home. Is she asking to go out to see friends, to socialize?
Yeah, you know, she had a friend who had a birthday party, and they all wanted to go to the roller rink and do that. And I'm like, kid, you're not going to the roller rink. So, you know, fortunately the girl had some people over to her house in a very small group setting afterwards. And so we let her go there. But I would tell you, you know, that was Saturday, and my thinking has even progressed from Saturday to now. And that, you know, part of the challenge is what they don't know. And again, I don't want to spread disinformation, and I don't know, but can you be asymptomatic and still be spreading this? And so there are all of those questions. So I think it becomes more important, to listen to reputable places like the World Health Organization and the CDC, and then make decisions that really does minimize your exposure.
Yeah. So a few weeks ago, well, actually, for the month of February, 3 weeks, I was in Southeast Asia. And so we were on a cruise, and we actually had 2 cruises to choose from, 2 princess cruises to choose from.
Oh, wow.
One was the Diamond Princess, and the other was the Sapphire Princess. We happened to choose the Sapphire Princess, but it was a 21-day cruise that got cut short after 11 days. Luckily, we were only planning to be on it for 11 days, but after day 10, the captain came on over the loudspeaker saying, basically, we're calling it a day. Everybody needs to evacuate the ship tomorrow. So we got in on the front end, and, you know, we were in Asia where we thought, well, this is the place to be. We can't wait to go home where we're safe.
Right.
So, you know, boy, I certainly did not expect this. And, you know, I remember landing in Hong Kong, in the airport in Hong Kong, and we were there for exactly 2 hours. And every person was wearing a mask except us. Mm-hmm. And I remember just feeling like, wow, I'm literally in a sci-fi movie. And I, you know, like literally we walked like this so that we wouldn't touch anything, hold anything. Like literally we were holding our breaths the whole time we were there. And the interesting thing is the moment that someone tells you don't cough is the moment that you need to
start to cough.
So I was like just holding myself together until I thought we were safe, which was on the plane to the next location. And boy, was that incorrect. And it's just like this thing that has kind of taken over, but has exposed us to some things we've never been exposed to before.
Yeah.
You know, like just, you know, conditions that, and I have thought that a lot of, you know, our parents and our parents' parents and our parents' parents before that have all been exposed to something major in their world. We have not. You know, in a way, we've all been super insulated from, or many of us anyway, not all of us, but many of us have been insulated from very severe world conditions. And now we're all in it together.
Yeah. It's, you know, and I would say, like, you know, generosity, kindness, like we are all in this together. This isn't about any one individual. This is about how we collectively make decisions that can have significant consequences, both good consequences and not so good consequences, right, during this time. So again, you know, and for me personally, it just incredibly grateful of the technology, all of the things that we have at our disposal that, you know, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, just wouldn't be possible.
So it brings up another issue for me. Like, so again, I mentioned 5 core values. One of them is generosity. The other is actually intimacy. And I think you know that one of the things we do is we invite our clients to journal in an online journal, and we build pretty intimate relationships with our clients. Having said that, like, we think it seems like social distancing decreases intimacy or stops intimacy from happening. But I would encourage anybody who's listening to start asking themselves this really critical question. How do I stay intimate? How do I become intimate? How do I say what I've never said before? How do I express myself in a way that I've never expressed myself before? How do I reach out to people that I haven't reached out to in a very long time? But how do I stay intimate in this time when, obviously physical touch is very much restricted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do think there's nothing better than being able to be with someone face to face and being able to have that connection. And I do think that being able to have a video conversation, right, is better than just having a phone call, right? And so it starts to be around degrees, and making the effort. And honestly, for me, I can't remember where I read it, but it's like just reaching out, even if it's via text, to check in on someone, right? Or give them a call, or like those are the little things right now that, granted, are not necessarily super intimate, but what they do is they tell people, I'm thinking about you. I care about you. I'm taking the time to do that. And I think that, that's an important aspect during this, right? If everybody reached out and connected with one or two people, maybe it's their elderly neighbor, or it's a friend that they haven't talked to in a while, to just check in on them and see how they're doing, or even someone that they talk to semi-regularly. I think those are ways to make sure that those connections stay tight.
So I have a question for you. We have a lot of people who are listening to this podcast who are dealing with HR issues.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a source, is there a place where you recommend they go to for some help?
If you're talking about HR issues with with COVID-19 or
yes,
in general,
specifically, both,
yeah,
either.
Yeah, I think, honestly, we direct people to the CDC. We direct people to the World Health Organization. I believe that Google has actually started posting some of their publications and their communications and some of those things. So there is good quality information out there. And I think that actually is something that is quite important right now, is making sure that the sources of communication that you are going to are trusted sources, because I think there is also a lot of potentially bad information or misinformation that's out there. And so how do you make sure that you're seeking information from trusted sources?
Awesome. Great. Okay. Kate, thank you so much for spending this time with us, for sharing your wisdom. We wish you the greatest luck and the greatest health as you ride this storm with you and your family and your whole entire team. And again, I thank you for spending the time with me today.
Hey, it was really great to get to connect, and I hope everyone stays healthy. And as I have been saying, and wash your hands frequently. It's one of the best things that you can be doing.
My hands are starting to bleed, actually, but it's okay. Thank you.